If you want to have serious social and political change, you look at the ways that it can be done, you see that reform is useless. Voting for people to federal government is useless. You also then know that rebellion and revolution are useless. That you would be crushed if you attempted it. So what ways are left then to you? Secession. That's a way left to you that doesn't involve guns and that can affect real change.
The art of the statesman is to see that difficulties and differences are settled without passing bullets between each other. And it's certainly not anyone that I know in our movement in the South that would advocate bullets. What we want is simply our freedom to form our own government as our own people. Right now, we have a gun to our head. Everyone in this room has a gun to his head that is forcing us to participate in things that are not only immoral, but stupid.
Our concern is that the military-industrial energy media complex is running what has become an empire on the ashes of the U.S. Republic. And the Second Vermont Republic is interested in reinventing ourselves and peaceably extricating ourselves from that empire.
1898, the United States worked out a deal with the Republic of Hawaii, an illegitimate government, and got annexation of the Republic of Hawaii. The people of Hawaii were never annexed. They never agreed to it. And so, instead of having it being done by treaty, which is the legal way to do it, it was done by resolution. It's like Washington came together doing a resolution and annexing Switzerland. We are occupied and we don't want to be occupied.
The Irish were annexed into the British Empire in the 16th century. It took them until 1920 to get their country back. How long? As long as it takes. Within 4 years, the Soviet Empire will fly apart from all the forces within it that can't be contained anymore. You would have looked at me and said, "You're a raving lunatic. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about." When it happened, how fast did it happen? How fast did the Berlin Wall come down? I went to school in Berlin in the 1970s. I know what that wall meant and what it was like. And for that wall to come down, it was an epochal change. And the collapse of the Soviet Union was an epochal change. And what we're talking about are basic social forces that have already been set in motion, social and economic forces, that will not be stopped by the American Empire. And as we've seen what the American Empire has done in the last 20 years and the way it's loaded itself down further and further and further with problems that cannot be solved, with wars that cannot be won, and it's made more and more enemies around the globe, sooner or later it's going to pay. So sooner or later that will fly to pieces.
I believe that once the idea gets out there and people understand that this is a nation founded on secession, that they will act on secession.
4 years ago, the notion of Vermont as an independent republic wasn't really on the table. And now we're circulating a newspaper, Vermont Commons, to the tune of 10,000 copies an issue. We held a session convention in the Vermont State House in Montpelier last October in which 300 people from Vermont attended to talk about the idea of secession. The University of Vermont conducted a poll last February and determined that 38,000 Vermonters out of a population of 620,000 Vermonters would peaceably secede tomorrow if given the opportunity. That's 8% of the population. You know, speaking personally, I want my children to grow up in a world where elections aren't stolen. I want my children to grow up in a world where we're in charge of our schools and our educational efforts at the local level, which is increasingly being challenged. I want my kids to grow up in a world where we have an energy future that is sustainable. I want my kids to grow up in a world where our government officials, elected and selected, don't talk about wars that will end in our lifetime.
I never want my children to be afraid of being arrested at dawn by a raid of men in black ninja suits, which has happened to me. Not because I had done anything unlawful, but because I crossed the Yankee Empire. I want that to stop. I want that never to happen again to anybody else in my country.
I lived through World War II. We had shortage of food, shortage of goods, shortage of everything. Blackouts, air raids, the whole almost shooting thing. I don't know that we want to do any more of that, including being targets for nuclear weapons.
I'm a secessionist and a patriot both. And secession, for me, it sounds a little cheesy to say this, but it gives me a lot of hope at a time when I'm not feeling a whole lot of hope from a lot of people across the political spectrum. Secession is not illegal. Secession is not unconstitutional. Secession is not immoral. Secession is not a racist plot. Secession is every American's birthright. And I think any American who looks at his or her country's own history will come to understand, we hope, that secession is not only legitimate, but in fact sort of the central, most viable policy option moving forward, given the realities of the 21st century world.
What's represented here is the failure of American politics. The reason that secession becomes desirable is that there is no way that we can get, this is exactly what Kirk said, there's no way that we can get what we need and want, both from a moral standpoint and from the standpoint of our desires, out of the present system. And it also, it shows, it graphically demonstrates the absolute breakdown of the left-right distinction and the phoniness of that distinction in the face of the issues that are presented to us today. And those issues go down to the organization, the level of the organization of society. Are we going to be organized as a society that's run by corporations and elites with this sort of veneer of democracy, and let those corporations literally break the rest of us and the world? Or are we going to take control of that and live in a different way? I mean, let me give you one example that I think shows the lunacy of the present system. The National Animal Identification System. Okay, now look, they tell us that's for animal health. They tell me foot and mouth disease. And I say, listen, the last case of foot and mouth disease was 1927. Whose foot is in whose mouth? What is this? The fact is, it was cooked up by agribusiness interests in 2002. It was handed to the USDA, and the USDA did what the entire federal government did. It does the bidding of those corporations. Now that's lunatic. Think about it. It's not just that they want to put these devices, an RFID device, in all the farm animals. If you've got a pet goat, they want one in your pet goat's ear. If you've got a pet chicken, they want it in that pet chicken's ear. This is crazy. You've got an empire and a system of government that claims to be God. Now, what do we know about God? God knows everything. So if the empire is going to be God, the empire has to know everything, including where you are today and what you're doing with your time and where your animals are and where your children are. So what I'm trying to point out is when you get arrogance like that, arrogance that takes no account of what the actual physical realities are, these people are on their way out. You know, they're on their. We had a discussion this morning with a friend of mine that came up here, Tom Morwood. I said, you know, obviously I've got a problem with my finger, and I brought bandages, but I couldn't bring scissors because the last time I went on a trip, the TSA confiscated my scissors. I guess they thought I was going to try to cut my way into the cab of the plane or something. Well, you know, I said, it just infuriates me. He said, you know what, it really shouldn't infuriate you because what it shows is what bad shape the empire is in. If they're afraid of a person with scissors, with a pair of scissors, then they're really so paranoid that they've lost control of themselves.
There will be a pan-secessionist organization, which is the Middlebury Institute, which stands here as a communications device for among all of these groups, and others that may continue to be formed. But basically everybody goes home from here energized with a whole set of new ideas of where to go, and with the knowledge that there are people all over North America doing the same thing, and that we are not alone, that we are now a movement.